Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, March 7th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside, we are looking at a pleasant high of 62.8 degrees today, with a low of 50.1 degrees, so it should be a comfortable day to get out and enjoy the fresh air. As we look at the headlines, we will be diving into the complex implications of the Donroe Doctrine and what it signals for the future trajectory of the Western Hemisphere. We will also analyze the intense national legal battle that has been ignited following the controversial arrest of a local journalist. We have plenty of other important stories to get to as well. All of this and more is coming up on Alex's News. Please stay tuned. Good morning. It is Saturday, March 7th, 2026, and we are following a major diplomatic shift in Miami today. President Trump has gathered several regional leaders at his Doral Golf Resort for what he calls the Shield of the Americas Summit. Ethan, this seems to be much more than just a typical meeting of neighbors, doesn't it?
You are absolutely right, Grace, because this summit marks the official rollout of the new Donroe Doctrine. According to NPR, this is a modern and more aggressive version of the 19th century Monroe Doctrine. The administration is using this framework to reassert American dominance across the Western Hemisphere while pushing out foreign rivals.
What is the actual mechanism being used to lock in these regional alliances?
The centerpiece of the summit is a landmark document known as the Doral Charter. As reported by state.gov, this charter codifies the idea that American sovereignty is tied to regional stability. It essentially grants the United States the right to intervene in nearby countries to prevent state failure or foreign incursions.
This sounds like a significant expansion of military and intelligence coordination for everyone involved.
It really is, and it starts with something called the Hemispheric Security Network. The National Interest reports that this framework allows for real-time intelligence sharing between the United States and its partners. The primary goal is to provide a unified military front to dismantle powerful narco-terrorist gangs throughout the region.
Is there a technological component to this doctrine as well?
Yes, the president is pushing a cyber shield initiative that requires all signatories to purge adversarial telecommunications infrastructure. This specifically targets Chinese firms like Huawei and ZTE, which the administration considers to be major security risks. Participants are expected to replace that hardware with systems approved by the United States.
How does the charter change the way these countries handle their trade and natural resources?
The agreement includes new energy compacts that require nations to prioritize American investment in their local infrastructure. This would give U.S. firms first dibs on developing things like energy grids and the massive lithium deposits in South America. The Straits Times notes that this move is designed to block Chinese state-owned enterprises from controlling vital resources.
I also understand there are new, stricter requirements for shipping and logistics at regional ports.
That is part of the new Secure Ports of the Americas certification program. Shipping hubs must now meet very specific American screening standards if they want to keep their trade routes open. Any port that fails to comply could face total exclusion from the lucrative North American markets.
This summit is happening against a very dramatic backdrop in Venezuela, isn't it?
The situation in Caracas is the most extreme example of this new doctrine in action. Back on January 3, 2026, American Special Forces executed a mission called Operation Absolute Resolve. They successfully captured President Nicolas Maduro and his wife Cilia Flores during a raid on the presidential palace.
Where exactly is the former Venezuelan leader being held right now?
Nicolas Maduro is currently in federal custody in Manhattan while he awaits trial on various narco-terrorism charges. Following his capture, the United States moved quickly to recognize Delcy Rodriguez as the interim president of Venezuela. France 24 reports that this intervention was the catalyst for the entire Doral Summit.
It seems like the relationship between Washington and Caracas has changed almost overnight.
Just 2 days ago, on March 5th, the two countries officially restored full diplomatic relations for the first time since 2019. This paved the way for Rodriguez to attend the summit as a key member of the new coalition. The administration views this as a major victory for their strategy of regional realignment.
Not everyone is praising this operation, though, right?
That is true, as critics cited by The Guardian have characterized the entire mission as a resource grab. Shortly after the raid, President Trump signaled that American oil companies would soon begin revitalizing the infrastructure in Venezuela. The Justice Department has already moved to take legal ownership of several intercepted Venezuelan oil tankers.
Who are the other primary leaders joining the president at Doral today?
The White House has focused on what they call a coalition of the like-minded, which includes 12 specific nations. Javier Milei of Argentina is a central figure here, especially after his government received $20 billion in U.S. support. Other key attendees include Nayib Bukele of El Salvador and Daniel Noboa of Ecuador.
I noticed that some of the biggest economies in the region are missing from the table.
That is the most striking part of the summit, because Mexico and Brazil were not even invited. ABC News reports that the administration has labeled leaders like Lula da Silva and Claudia Sheinbaum as unreliable partners. The White House claims these leaders are far too compromised by their existing ties to the Chinese government.
What do experts say about trying to secure the hemisphere without the help of Mexico or Brazil?
Analysts from the International Institute for Strategic Studies argue that this approach may be functionally impossible. They point out that Mexico remains the primary transit point for fentanyl entering the United States. Without their cooperation, it is very difficult to see how the hemispheric security network can actually stop the drug trade.
It sounds like this could be seen as an ideological purge rather than a practical security strategy.
That is exactly how the Stimson Center describes it, noting the heavy focus on military tactics over economic diplomacy. While the U.S. offers tariffs and militarization, China is still offering these countries massive trade and investment opportunities. Some experts believe this creates a dangerous divide between nations labeled as loyal partners and those seen as suspect.
President Trump is also balancing the summit with some very heavy news from overseas, isn't he?
He is currently managing a week-old war against Iran that was launched alongside Israeli forces. His time at Doral today is actually quite limited because of a tragedy involving American service members. He is scheduled to depart Miami early to head to Dover Air Force Base for a solemn ceremony.
Are those the troops who were recently killed in a drone strike in the Middle East?
Yes, he will be attending the dignified transfer for 6 U.S. troops who were killed in Kuwait. This highlights the immense pressure the administration is under as they juggle multiple global conflicts at once. Even as he reshapes the Americas, the president is deeply entangled in this escalating war with Tehran.
How has the Chinese government responded to being specifically targeted by this new Doral Charter?
Beijing has responded with sharp condemnation and immediate economic retaliation against the countries attending the summit. The Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the charter represents a, quote, imperialist Cold War mentality, end quote. They have already imposed 15% tariffs on beef coming from Argentina and frozen infrastructure projects in Panama.
Is the United Nations weighing in on the legality of the Venezuela intervention?
Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed deep alarm over the precedent set by the military raid in Caracas. He called the operation a clear violation of the United Nations Charter regarding national sovereignty. However, the Security Council remains deadlocked because the United States continues to push its own regional agenda.
Does it look like this interventionist policy will stop with Venezuela?
There are already signs that the administration is looking toward their next move under the Donroe Doctrine. The White House has signaled that Cuba may be the next target for a regime change operation. This summit at Doral is really just the beginning of a much broader attempt to institutionalize American control.
It is certainly a new era for the hemisphere. Ethan, thank you for that detailed report.
You are very welcome, Grace.
Good morning and thank you for joining us on this Saturday, March 7th, 2026. We are starting today with a legal and civil rights battle that is gaining national attention following the arrest of a prominent Nashville journalist. Estefany Rodriguez Flores, a reporter for Nashville Noticias and Univision 42, was taken into federal custody earlier this week. and the circumstances are raising serious questions about press freedom. Joining us now to break down the latest developments is our reporter Chloe. Chloe, this arrest happened just a few days ago on Wednesday, but it sounds like it was a very intense scene on the ground.
It really was, Grace, and the details coming from eyewitnesses are quite jarring for a routine traffic stop. According to reporting from the Associated Press, Rodriguez Flores was traveling in a clearly marked news vehicle on Murfreesboro Pike when she was suddenly surrounded by several unmarked trucks. Her husband, Alejandro Medina III, told reporters from The Guardian and ABC News that agents swarmed the car and took her into custody right there in front of him.
That sounds incredibly aggressive for someone who was just out doing her job in a marked company van. Was there any legal justification provided at the scene for why they were stopping her specifically?
That is the central point of a major legal dispute right now between her attorneys and the government. The Boston Globe reports that her legal team, led by Joel Coxander of Mira Legal, claims the agents failed to produce an actual arrest warrant when they took her. Instead, the lawyers say agents only presented a notice to appear, which is an administrative document rather than a judicial warrant signed by a judge.
So if there was no judicial warrant, what is the official reason immigration officials are giving for detaining her?
The official word from the government is that this was a targeted enforcement operation. An immigration spokesperson named Melissa Egan stated that Rodriguez Flores was arrested because her original tourist visa expired back in September of 2021. The Los Angeles Times reports that federal authorities are leaning heavily on the fact that she overstayed that original entry, despite her more recent efforts to formalize her residency.
It seems like there is a lot more to her history here than just an expired visa from 5 years ago, though. What do we know about her actual professional background and why she was in the United States to begin with?
She is originally a citizen of Colombia, and she has been working as a respected reporter in Nashville since 2022. According to the Washington Post, she actually fled Colombia after receiving death threats that were directly linked to her investigative journalism into regional crime and corruption. She has spent the last few years covering social issues, police activity, and immigration stories right here in the Tennessee community.
If she was fleeing for her life and has been working openly for a major news outlet, she must have had some kind of paperwork in process. Does she have any legal standing to be here right now?
Her legal status is what experts are calling a complex term of art, and it is at the heart of this entire fight. While her tourist visa did expire, she has a pending application for political asylum and an active application for a green card through her husband, who is a United States citizen. On top of that, the Boston Globe and KGW report that she possesses a valid employment authorization document, which most people simply know as a work permit.
If she has a valid work permit and a pending green card application, how is the government able to argue that she should be in a detention center?
This is where the legal nuances of 2026 enforcement protocols get very technical and very controversial. Federal authorities argue that having a pending asylum claim or even a valid work permit does not actually confer what they call lawful status. According to the government stance in the Los Angeles Times, these documents provide authorized stay or lawful presence, which prevents her from being penalized for being here, but they do not officially shield her from arrest for that original visa overstay.
That sounds like a very narrow legal distinction that could affect thousands of people in similar situations. Is there a sense from her supporters that she was targeted specifically because of the work she does?
There is a very strong belief among advocacy groups that this was a retaliatory move by the agency. Democracy Now! Reports that Rodriguez Flores has frequently produced reporting that was critical of immigration enforcement practices in Nashville. Her lawyers pointed out the timing is especially suspicious because she was arrested just one day after she had been out in the field, covering other enforcement actions within the community.
That timing certainly raises some eyebrows, especially for a journalist who is well known in the Spanish-speaking community. How are journalism organizations responding to the news of her being taken off the streets?
The reaction has been swift and very stern, especially from the National Association of Hispanic Journalists. They issued a statement suggesting that the tactics used by immigration agents were a clear attempt to interfere with news coverage and silence a critical voice. The Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Coalition told reporters that this feels like a chilling repeat of the Manuel Duran case from 2018, where a Memphis journalist was detained for 15 months after covering protests.
It is hard to imagine a reporter being held for over a year just for doing their job, but it sounds like the government is doubling down on their authority here. Has the Department of Homeland Security responded to the claims that they did not have a warrant?
They have, and they are disputing the version of events provided by her husband and her legal team. In a preliminary response filed just yesterday, March 6th, the government produced an administrative document titled Warrant for Arrest of Alien dated March 2nd. According to news sources, the government maintains they have the authority under Federal Codes 8 U.S.C. Sections 1226 and 1357 to use these administrative warrants to conduct public arrests.
So the government is saying they had the paperwork ready 2 days before the traffic stop happened. If she was already in the system and trying to follow the rules, why did she not just resolve this at a scheduled meeting?
That is one of the most frustrating parts of this story for her family and her legal team at Mirror Legal. They say she was actively attempting to comply with every single requirement and had meetings scheduled with immigration officials that were canceled by the agency itself. One meeting was pushed back because of a winter storm, and another was rescheduled because an agent apparently could not find her appointment in their internal computer system.
So she was trying to show up and do the right thing, but the system kept moving the goalposts on her?
Exactly, and what makes the timing of Wednesday's arrest even more pointed is that she had a new meeting on the books. She was actually set to meet with officials on March 17th, which is less than 2 weeks from today. Her lawyers argue that there was absolutely no reason to stage a dramatic highway takedown when they knew exactly where she was and knew she was planning to come to their office voluntarily.
It really paints a picture of a very aggressive strategy by the agency, but where is Estefany now? Is she still being held in Nashville?
No, and her location has actually been a major source of stress for her family over the last 48 hours. She was initially taken to the Etowah County Jail in Alabama, but updates from the Houston Chronicle indicate she has since been transferred. She is currently being held at the Central Louisiana ICE Processing Center in the town of Jenna, Louisiana.
That is a long way from her home and her family in Tennessee. How is her family handling the fact that she has been moved so far away?
It has been a nightmare for them, especially because she briefly disappeared from the online detainee locator system during that transfer. Her husband and their young daughter were left in a state of panic because they could not confirm where she was for a period of time. Advocacy groups are emphasizing that she is a mother and a wife with deep roots in her community, and they argue she poses absolutely no flight risk given her ongoing legal cases.
This is all coming to a head in court very quickly, though, so what is the next step for her legal team to try and get her home?
Everything is currently sitting with United States District Judge Eli Richardson under an emergency petition for a writ of habeas corpus. The petition argues that her detention is a direct violation of her First and Fifth Amendment rights as a journalist and a resident. However, the federal government filed a response just yesterday, asking the judge to deny her immediate release, insisting that her detention is perfectly lawful while they move forward with her removal proceedings.
So, we are essentially waiting on a judge to decide if a work permit and a pending asylum claim are enough to keep a journalist out of a detention center.
That is the bottom line, Grace. Judge Richardson is expected to issue a ruling very soon on whether she can be granted bond or if she has to stay in that Louisiana facility. Until then, her newsroom and the local community in Nashville are continuing to hold rallies and call for her immediate release.
It is a developing situation that has a lot of people worried about the precedent it sets for the press. Chloe, thank you so much for that detailed report and for keeping us updated on Estefany's status. We will continue to follow this story as that court ruling comes down. Here are some other headlines. A golden opportunity for a diplomatic disaster unfolded on March 5th as Hungarian authorities put the lock in interbank transfer. Officials detained 7 employees of Ukraine's state-owned Opus Bank and seized a staggering $80 million in cash and gold from 2 armored vehicles. This heavy-handed move by Hungary's National Tax and Customs Administration included $40 million, 35 million euros, and 9 kilograms of gold. While the 7 staff members were released by Friday evening, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha isn't exactly banking on a quick resolution, calling the seizure state banditism. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán suggested the funds had dubious roots, perhaps trying to, up support for his April 2026 election campaign. This icy standoff comes as the Druzhba oil pipeline remains bone dry, leading Kyiv to claim this is a slippery attempt at blackmail to get Russian oil flowing again. Consequently, Hungary has vetoed a €90 billion European Union loan, and Ukraine has issued a travel warning, proving that when it comes to neighborly relations, they are currently stuck in the pipeline. In Brooklyn, the Merchant of Menace has been closed for business. 48-year-old Pakistani national Asif Merchant was convicted on March 6, 2026, for his role in an Iranian-backed hired gun plot. Merchant was looking to check out several high-profile political figures, including Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Nikki Haley, to avenge the 2020 killing of Qasem Soleimani. He thought he was paying $5,000 to professional hitmen, but it turns out he was buying into an FBI sting. Merchant faces a life sentence for his murder-for-hire scheme, claiming he only participated to protect his family in Tehran, proving that the cost of doing business with the Revolutionary Guard is far too high. The U.S. Navy is finally being forced to abandon ship on its policy of total secrecy. A federal judge ruled on March 6, 2026, that the First Amendment isn't just for landlubbers, ordering the service to provide public access to military court records. This sea change comes after ProPublica fought for transparency following a high-profile arson trial involving the USS Bonhomme Richard. Now, the Navy must provide 10 days notice for preliminary hearings and deliver transcripts within 30 days, ending a policy that kept 99% of records submerged. New York Attorney General Letitia James is scrubbing in for a deep dive into Columbia University's past. She's launched a formal investigation into why the school let disgraced Dr. Robert Haddon keep practicing for weeks after his 2012 arrest. With over $1 billion already paid out to more than 1,000 victims, survivors are hoping this probe finally delivers some accountability for the administrators who stayed silent while at least 8 more patients were assaulted. Finally, Nairobi is reeling after a devastating start to the long rains season. Overnight on March 6th and 7th, 2026, flash floods claimed at least 8 lives, 6 people drowned, and 2 were, shockingly, electrocuted. President William Ruto has deployed the military to help rescue those stuck in the mud. The weather even grounded the high flyers at the airport, forcing Kenya Airways to divert flights to Mombasa. With over 100 vehicles damaged, residents are fuming over the city's drained infrastructure. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.6, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.